After 15 years covering war zones, hostile environments, and U.S. Special Operations Forces on combat missions, I've come to realize that every day above ground is a day not below. Every moment has been significant, yes, even the mundane and even the mistakes, because those are what have brought me to where I am today. And what I've learned and what I've witnessed is that qualities such as compassion, strength, loyalty, bravery, those qualities have no age, no gender, and no race. Let me tell you about Combat Outpost Pirelli. I spent 2 years embedded covering U.S. Special Forces A-teams on combat missions in Diyala Province, Iraq, not far from the Iranian border. Now, on one of those missions, Green Beret Staff Sergeant Rob Pirelli was killed in action. But his extraordinary heroism saved 12 Green Beret brothers. Combat Outpost Pirelli was just one story from one mission during one day with the Special Forces A-teams on frontline battles day in and day out. I covered Rob's A-team and his Gold Star family for 5 years. And what they told me after I got the story out was that my reporting answered their questions, and that it also brought them closure. Chinook Down is my video special for the New York Times. It was an investigation into the Taliban surface-to-air missile shoot-down of a U.S. Chinook helicopter in Afghanistan. I was supposed to be on that helicopter, but I survived to report firsthand on the fierce firefight and the recovery efforts that followed. I had to follow up for 5 years with Freedom of Information Act appeals to get unreleased Pentagon documents. What's interesting is that video special, Chinook Down, ended up garnering a billboard in Times Square in New York City. While that's an honor, what was more important to me was that one of the soldiers on that mission, who had suffered from post-traumatic stress for a long time, after that story came out, he told me, "Alex, your story, your storytelling helped me come home from the war." And you know what? Storytelling has helped me too. Let me tell you about The Horse Soldiers of 9/11, my documentary special that's narrated by award-winning actor Gary Sinise. When 9/11 happened and Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, held up that photo in a press conference showing the special operators and the CIA agents riding on horseback into Afghanistan, I knew getting that story, that backstory, would be a journalistic coup. Now, what people don't know is that it took me 5 years to track down those secret squirrel guys, the special operators and the CIA operatives, and convince them to go on camera and to share their stories. Horse Soldiers of 9/11 is now in film festivals nationwide. What I've learned from covering Special Forces operators can be applied to your career as a journalism student or your future career, and that is go over, under, around, and through every obstacle to get the job done. Do it ethically, and never, ever quit. Journalism ethics is everything, and every day as a reporter that you will need to grapple with ethical dilemmas and questions where you will have to check your moral compass. Let me give you an example. When I covered the Great Tsunami for CNN in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, I was amongst dead bodies, bloated from the water, and covering mass graves for weeks. There were no survivors. 90,000 people had been wiped off the face of this earth. I found some children who had no family, no money, nothing. They were alone. In war zones and hostile environments, you quickly learn that there is a fine line between getting the story and being human. Now, when it was time to leave the tsunami and go back to CNN, because we had the story, I grappled with this dilemma of abandoning these orphans, these children with nothing, these victims. And this is something that reporters in other war zones have had to deal with as well. So when it came time to leave, we gave them some money. Now, did we journalistically cross the line? Was that an ethical bad call? A year later, when I tracked them down, these children, they had used that money to stay together, to go to school. They hadn't been forced into the child sex trade or into slavery or into early marriages. So I think it was the right moral decision. And these are some of the ethical dilemmas that we all have to face as reporters. People have asked me, what is my favorite project or my favorite story I've ever done? And you know what? It's always whatever the next one is, because I always want to outdo myself. I want to do something better. I want to challenge myself. If I do that, then I'm learning and the audience will learn too.